Hi, everybody. How are you doing this morning? It is exactly 11 a.m. sharp, Mountain Standard Time. Bitcoin is at $21,702. We're up, friends. Things are up. It's actually not up a ton today, but it went up quite significantly yesterday. We're up 2.79% today. Ethereum is at $1,222. And my favorite micro cap coin, Giddy, is basically flat, moving sideways. Give me some love, Giddy. Can we see some price action, please? I would love that. The team at Giddy have been very, very, very cautious not to ever appear that they are pumping their token, which is, of course, the responsible move. That said, I would like to see the token price go up sometime in the not distant future. If it continues to move sideways, I got to reconsider my position. Let's get into some of the events. Now, if you clicked on this, you saw the thumbnail, you saw the title. YouTube got kind of mad at me. Let's talk about that. Jeez. I got an STRIKE, and I'm going to be careful what I say because, geez, I don't even know what triggered this. I did a live stream yesterday called What is Bitcoin Aximalism? I'm going to use some pig Latin again, choosing my words very carefully. For it being, quote, harmful or dangerous content. If you didn't see it yesterday, the live stream that I did is the longest I've ever done. I talked largely about, shall we call them, toxic Bitcoin hardliners. How about that? Hardliners. Who are making the space unwelcome for people who have any deviation in opinion. And honestly, there was nothing in there that was this harmful or dangerous. I spent an hour talking to people about the necessity and virtue of temperance and patience and openness and dialogue and civil discourse, rather than toxic dismissal of anybody who bears a different opinion. The entire video was about that. I immediately submitted an appeal. My video doesn't encourage any illegal or even extreme behavior. My entire video is encouraging moderate views and tolerance. I can't begin to guess why this was flagged. Well, eventually it was reinstated. I posted this on Twitter. I guess I'm not allowed to use this M word, Aximalism. This is insane. I didn't tag YouTube in it, but they did respond almost immediately. Since you already filed an appeal, it's best to wait for the result. And the result did come. My video is back up. If you're curious to see that, it's on the channel. It's just from yesterday. Go take a look. So this was an interesting exercise for me in censorship. It got flagged somehow. I don't know if a viewer decided to report it because they didn't like it or agree with it. I don't know if things I said or did in the video or in the metadata, like the title, triggered something. I have no idea. They don't do specific reporting on these things. They kind of can't. Here's the problem. Here's the challenge that they would face if they reported exactly why you got flagged. People would route around that, just like I am choosing my words more carefully. I'm not using the Aximalism word anymore. But obviously the trade-off here is it has a chilling effect. I'm going to be very cautious about what I say, even though I didn't say anything extreme or harmful. I still feel the need to be very careful because now I'm on thin ice. I can't afford to have these strikes. I would like to keep this channel. I've got a good thing going here where I do live streams every day. Would rather not stop because they shut me down. So this is something in the broader zeitgeist, the social media atmosphere, censorship. This is one of my first experiences firsthand having this happen. And it resolved, but it's not great. What I was talking about yesterday was largely Aximalism, Bitcoin hardliners, and their many in that fold, many in that tribe, their bad behavior toward Nick Carter. Nick Carter deleted a tweet, an old tweet from 2018, where he said, being intolerant of scammers and snake oil salesmen is a long-term strategy that is healthy and good for everyone, even if it hurts in the short term. Optimizing for any other set of norms is unworkable. He's right. But he deleted that tweet. And a lot of people, Bitcoin hardliners, are saying, "Why did you delete this tweet, Nick?" Well, I can tell you why, and it doesn't take very much thinking to figure it out. He deleted it because the hardliners found it and then started calling him the snake oil salesman. They were harassing him. Have you ever been harassed online? Really, have you ever had the Twitter mob come after you? I have once, one time. And it was, again, like my experience yesterday with that video that got censored. It was a pretty unpleasant experience. It was mild compared to what can happen, right? I dipped my toe in. I tried it out a little bit. Here's what happened. On Twitter, some time ago, it was a long time ago, and you're not going to find it if you go looking. You'd have to be very focused and dedicate some time to make this produce results. I got into a back and forth exchange with a Twitter influencer that I didn't realize was an influencer. This was just somebody who popped up in my timeline. I saw their tweet, and it was a highly political, what I thought was a radical political view, calling for radical action. And this was an influential person with a large audience. And I didn't fully realize who their audience was, who they were speaking to. This was just a person at the grand cocktail party that is Twitter. And I started pushing back against what they were saying because it was patently insane by my view. It was just totally insane and deeply, profoundly destructive, which it turns out there's plenty of toxic, deeply, profoundly destructive stuff out there. Lots of opinions that are just deleterious to everybody in the broader social dialogue. Well, her entire audience, thousands of people came after me, calling me every horrible thing you can think of. They were calling me a Nazi, Hitler, just a murderer. Like, think of all the foul, awful things that you could call somebody. That's what I was getting. And it was thousands of these tweets. I had to mute it. I had to leave my phone alone. Twitter became unusable for me. And as somebody who uses that platform very regularly, that's a problem. Nick Carter, I believe, was in a similar position here. If you're being brigaded by a mob, it makes sense to try to cut that off however you have to, including deleting an old tweet that people are like misconstruing, taking out of context, doing all of the things they can to try to make you look like a bad guy. So here's somebody retweeting a screenshot of Nick's old tweet saying, "What changed, Nick?" And then you look at the comments on this and everybody's like, "He is the snake oil salesman." And like, it gets really crass and ugly. You're doing the thing right now. Do you remember Hitch? Did you see the movie Hitch with Will Smith? There's a guy in the movie who gets really sad and desperate, and he's like, "Why don't girls like me? Why don't women want me? I just want to love somebody." And he was being pathetic. And Will Smith was like, "You're doing the thing right now. This is it. This is why women don't want you." And they're like, "Oh," the same thing is happening here on Twitter. People are like, "Oh, why'd you delete the tweet, Nick? Huh? Is it because you're a snake oil salesman?" And it's like, no, it's because you obnoxious, horrible people are making my life miserable. I don't want to be here. I don't want to engage with this if this is how you're going to talk. It has nothing to do with the ideas at play. In fact, that's not it at all. These hardliners have decided that any ideas are unacceptable, and therefore they will vehemently reject those people in the most crass, foul fashion. This is a severe cultural problem within Bitcoin. My stream from 2 days ago, the thumbnail has a picture of Nick Carter and Balaji Srinivasan. I don't think I fully articulated why Balaji was in there. Nick has left the hardline camp. He was never part of the hardline camp, but a lot of the hardliners thought he was under their umbrella. And now he's basically renounced that. Balaji, who also does not at all identify as a hardliner, has said that Bitcoin aximalism is one of the most powerful forces, one of the most powerful movements out there that people don't know about right now. And I think he's right. So this is a problem. This is a movement that is growing in importance and power, but it has a severe cultural problem. Yikes. I'm not happy about that. Peter McCormick, the podcaster of What Bitcoin Did, said during the block size wars, a number of determined Bitcoiners prevented the hijacking of Bitcoin. The block size wars, if you're not familiar, happened in 2017. This was a discussion about how to scale the Bitcoin network, whether the block size should be increased or not. And this created the fork that created Bitcoin Cash. We've talked about that before. Bitcoin Cash is a break-off of Bitcoin that retains the blockchain history from prior to that break-off, but then is completely independent after that. Its market capitalization has diminished dramatically, and Roger Ver was its loudest proponent, most prominent proponent, and it recently came out that he is almost certainly insolvent, bankrupt, where if he had just held his Bitcoin, he would be one of the most wealthy people on the planet. Harsh. This is all fallout from a 2017 schism within the community that is not entirely dissimilar to what we're experiencing right now. People outside the space probably have no idea this is going on, but it is, and it will make a huge difference to the future of this technology, this movement, this network. Peter McCormick on Twitter. During the block size wars, a number of determined Bitcoiners prevented the hijacking of Bitcoin. In 2021-22, a new wave of .hodl Bitcoiners arrived to aggressively harass / abuse people who don't follow their strict ideology. These people are not the same. That is true. And Peter gets attacked in here saying, like, you weren't around in 2017. You don't know what it was like then. But I was around in 2017, and I think Peter's got it right. There are people in this community who are behaving very badly, and it's going to drive people away. It's already driving people away. Some of your best defenders, some of the smartest people in the room are leaving the party because they're being harassed, that they're not orthodox enough. It's insane. It's insane, and it's actually like really damaging to the future and the potential and the strength of this movement. Again, Peter McCormick, there are some very good progressives coming to Bitcoin with new and interesting ideas. Political progressives, I'm sure is what he means here. Next week, I'm interviewing someone writing a Bitcoin book for progressives. I think this is important work. He's right. There are some good progressives coming into Bitcoin with new and interesting ideas. Historically, if you'd been around 10 years ago, certainly the characterization of a Bitcoiner was that somebody was basically like a crypto anarchist, of a libertarian persuasion, stateless money, the divorce of money and state, separation of money and state, just like we have a separation of religion and state. Still, today and historically, Bitcoiners are calling for a separation of money and state, which to me makes great sense. The characterization has been that Bitcoiners are libertarian, anarcho-capitalists, etc. What Peter is saying is that progressives are coming to the table here, and they have good reason to. I think that's true, and I think it is important as I'm identifying myself as a big tent Bitcoiner. We want as many people in this movement supporting this as humanly possible. Lynn Alden, one of the most capable and astute analysts in the space, responded and said, George Orwell, famous for his anti-authoritarian works, identified as a democratic socialist. That guy would probably be into Bitcoin if he was around today. The appreciation of decentralized peer-to-peer money will probably draw people from a lot of viewpoints over time. We can already see this. Alex Gladstein is another proponent of Bitcoin who's been a loud champion of the power of Bitcoin to liberate people under authoritarian rule and failing currency. In no sense do I think that Alex Gladstein is a libertarian anarcho-capitalist. On the contrary, if I were to wager, take a guess, I'd say he's probably American left of center. But he sees the power of Bitcoin and what it can do. There are a lot of qualities of Bitcoin that would appeal to that crowd. We should be fostering this narrative that there are reasons for everybody to get behind this movement. Think of it like a religion. Think of it like a political party. You want a big tent. You want people to join. If you care about your ideas, you want people to get behind your ideas, and you want momentum behind your ideas. You don't just want to be some loud, obnoxious town crier, guy with a sandwich board on the front and the back saying the world is ending, you're all going to hell. You don't accomplish anything that way. Do you care about the real world consequences of this movement, of affecting actual change in the real world? If so, you should be much more open, much more engaged in actual civil dialogue rather than decrying people and excommunicating them. Moving on. The Bitcoin conference, hosted by Bitcoin Magazine, annually held in Miami, has announced some of their speakers. no real surprises here. Michael Saylor will be there, of course. Lynn Alden, who I was just talking about, will be there. Stacy Herbert will be there. Stacy's a longtime Bitcoiner. She's kind of the right-hand woman to Max Keiser. And are they married? Does anybody out there know? Let me know in the comments if they are married. I haven't looked into this, but they have been side by side for a very long time. If they are not married or partners romantically, then this is a very interesting relationship between those two. Whatever. Alex Gladstein, who I was just talking about from the Human Rights Foundation, a great guy doing great things in the world. I have a lot of admiration for Gladstein. Zoltan Pozsar, who is the managing director of Credit Suisse. Interesting. We also have Michelle Phan, a YouTuber. I'm not real eager about that, just getting big names for the sake of big names. Matt Odell, who is certainly a big influencer. Now, these two at the end are interesting. Anthony Pompliano was a presenter at the Bitcoin conference this year. He's a big name in the space, but he's also been a promoter of many other projects, including projects that have now gone belly up. UST and Luna, and big proponent and investor in BlockFi, which has definitely fallen on really hard times. Pomp is getting accused of lending his audience and stage to a lot of essentially scammers, like the founder of UST and Luna. What's that guy's name? Can't remember. And then there's Corey Clipston right next to him, CEO of Swan Bitcoin, swan.com. Corey has been one of the loudest antagonists against all of these other chains, other coins, other projects, calling them all scams. Corey is the quintessential Bitcoin maximalist May. So Pomp and Corey probably do not get along. There could be a very interesting on-stage debate between these two. I don't think that's going to happen, but it should. I would like for these conferences to be places where we have actual thought leadership and discussion rather than the level of cheerleadership that goes on. There's a lot of like, rah, rah, yeah, we're the best that goes on from stage. I would love to see engaged intellectual dialogue between opposing parties on stage. That would be interesting. I'm not holding my breath for it. They just announced these speakers. More announcements will be coming soon on who's speaking. I already have my tickets. I bought my tickets right after the last one. You should buy yours. If you have any interest in going, you should buy yours now. Prices consistently go up, and they are, at least right after the conference, they were like 1/10 the price that they ultimately will be right before the conference. So if you have an interest in going, just buy your ticket now. Because if you do end up going and you have to buy right before the conference, you will pay literally many times over more what you would pay right now. Nayib Bukele, president of El Salvador, tweeted, "Since the New York Times has devoted so much time and space to El Salvador's economic initiatives, since when has the New York Times devoted so much time and space to El Salvador's economic initiatives? It's clear they're afraid Bitcoin is inevitable." By the way, they say we're heading to default. Will they publish an apology once we pay everything on time? So the New York Times published this piece about El Salvador. Headline, El Salvador's big bet on Bitcoin isn't paying off. Basically saying that the price is down since Nayib Bukele started buying a little over a year ago, which is true. But do they think that sovereign wealth funds and sovereign nations start investing in something for a quick flip, that it needs to go up in the next few months? Come on, New York Times, you're smarter than that. Maybe you're not, right? Maybe you're so ideologically possessed that you're not smarter than that anymore. Ideological possession makes you dumber. Full stop. Doesn't matter what your ideology is. If you're completely committed to an ideology, you will stop thinking critically about the things that are going on relative to that ideology. You'll just use your maxims, your aphorisms. You'll just repeat your articles of faith without actually thinking critically about what's going on. Don't make this a religion, you guys. It's not a constructive mode of thought on the topic. We're dealing with the real world economics, global adoption, practical things, real things that need real people to actually implement. Don't await the hand of God to make hyper-Bitcoinization happen. That's not how it's going to move forward. Nayib Bukele, kind of poking fun at the New York Times for poking fun at him. El Salvador, by the way, is winning the global race to accumulate Bitcoin. According to this graph, they have 2,381 Bitcoin, and other nations have zero. I actually think this is false. I've mentioned this before. It is my suspicion that other nations are quietly accumulating. Now, what nations am I talking about? Well, El Salvador started accumulating and has announced it to other people. El Salvador, who had a currency that was not really that valuable, right? People in El Salvador, previous to the Bitcoin introduction movement from Nayib Bukele, and even still, people in El Salvador want US dollars. A lot of small developing nations want US dollars. They'll use them in regular transactions. They're basically relying on the United States to create a stable currency. Now, that's a precarious position. You're basically a small nation relying on a large nation to create an economic environment for you where you can do commerce. And you got to play by the terms of that larger nation. You're subject to whatever they want to do. There was a tweet I read on here a few days ago. Imagine you're a small country and Jerome Powell starts printing trillions of dollars, deeply affecting your economy, and there is nothing you can do about it. This is going to drive people to Bitcoin. This is what has happened to El Salvador. Nayib Bukele sees the writing on the wall. Bitcoin is a way forward for the country that can't be controlled by the larger nations. So he has not only bought Bitcoin, but he has announced it to the world. Now, his motivation is a bit different than somebody like, say, the United States or the Eurozone. The United States and the Eurozone have their own currencies and have a lot of power. If the United States decides that, hey, we're only going to be able to kick the can down the road for so long before the dollar starts really inflating, but the government wants to maintain power, control, what would they do? Well, they would look for alternatives and they would start to quietly accumulate. They would buy en masse, secretly, veiled, as much as humanly possible. So are all other nations at zero? I don't think so. I think powerful nations are acquiring quietly. And smaller nations like El Salvador, if they're acquiring, are announcing it to everybody. The motivations are different here, but both motivations end up pointing them to Bitcoin. Just in, this from Bitcoin Magazine, Bitcoin miner Marathon now holds 10,055 Bitcoin worth more than $210 million, and they're holding all of their Bitcoin they mine. This is not an easy thing to do in a down market. Bitcoin miners, especially on a large scale, they have huge real costs associated with their mining facilities. They have to pay for energy. They have to pay for the facility and maintenance. My wife works at a large data center, and she worked at a data center during the 2017-2018 bull run as well. They had some clients who were Bitcoin miners. Now, when the rally happened in 2017 and Bitcoin went up to new all-time highs of then $20,000 and it was huge euphoria and miners were making lots of money, the miners who hosted their hardware at this data center facility acted a lot different. They rolled up in sports cars. They made big demands of the data center provider. They threw money around. Total hotshots. Cartoon picture of somebody who's got too much money and doesn't know what to do with it and thinks they're a big deal. And then Bitcoin and the entire cryptocurrency market collapsed, fell down hard, more than 50%. And suddenly these same people were showing up to the data center begging for forgiveness, begging for credit terms that were forgiving and long and would give them a lot of time to pay their bills. Didn't work out well for them. Anybody who's been around for a few years should know at this point that Bitcoin mining can be very precarious. You can make a lot of money or you can go bankrupt. The film that I made, Life on Bitcoin, our primary sponsor was a company out of Stockholm, Sweden called KNC Miner. They were making some of the best hardware in the world when we filmed that in 2013. They went belly up a couple years later when they had to pay very high taxes in Sweden, and other places like China didn't have to pay quite as much. I think power was cheaper in China and energy was very expensive in Stockholm. KNC Miner went belly up. I really liked those guys. They ran a great operation. C'est la vie. Mining is really hard. This is also why somebody like Dan Olson, whom I made a response video to. Okay, let me back up. If you haven't seen it, my most viewed video is a response to a guy named Dan Olson, who did a 2-hour, 20-minute video, feature length, that was a critical essay on how all of crypto was basically broken, a scam, a way to cheat you. One of his arguments is that Bitcoin, the way proof of work works, is that it makes the big miners more powerful, and there's no way for a little guy to get in. Dan, my guy, big miners go belly up all the time. There's a huge turnover in this industry. It is not easy to stay solvent with such a volatile market. So this is just another demonstration that he's demonstrably wrong. But Marathon is holding all of their Bitcoins, which I think is great. It is a strong sign of not only conviction, but maybe they believe that we are at the bottom. This from Jeff Kerdakis. I don't know who Jeff Kerdakis is. He's the CEO at TrustSwap. The banking system, including all debit cards, are currently down in Canada. So he tweeted this, today at 9:22 a.m. The banking system including all debit cards are currently down in Canada. No one can make payments for anything. Maybe this Bitcoin thing has utility after all. It's shocking to me when people say that Bitcoin has no use. It's like, it's money and a payment system. Of course it has use. Do you use money? Do you need to pay or receive payments? That's what it does. And it does it on this completely independent network that nobody can shut down, nobody can gatekeep. Have you ever run into problems? Ever? No? You must be fantastically privileged then. But even then, legacy systems are vulnerable, antiquated, old, not great, slow, expensive. We're building a better system here, guys. It is better. From Eric Weiss, Digital Asset Manager, Family Offices, and HNW Individuals, high net worth HNW Individuals. CEO, Bitcoin Investment Group and Blockchain Investment Group. Someone is buying $1 million of Bitcoin per second on Binance. Wow. So the miners are not selling. Someone's buying $1 million per second. It feels like we might be at a low point right now, i.e. at the bottom, price-wise. Right? Capitulation is when people give up and they say like, oh, it could absolutely go further down. All is lost. And then the market surprises you. Maybe we're at the bottom, you guys. This from Carl, who I don't know who Carl is. Looks like a Twitter Anon, a Satoshi laserized Twitter Anon, deeply dedicated to Bitcoin. Seems like people from Mt. Gox hack get back their funds in fiat and not in Bitcoin. So Mt. Gox was an exchange in the very early days of Bitcoin where something like 70% of all Bitcoin was transacted, purchased. And if you had money on there, you probably lost it because they got hacked and almost all of that got wiped out. Now, a certain amount of those funds have been recouped and the people who held money there are eligible to receive some of it back. But it's not going to be in Bitcoin. If you had 10 Bitcoin on Mt. Gox, you're not getting 10 Bitcoin back. You're getting the dollar value at the time of hack back now. So I'm very sorry, guys. You just lost out on the last 8 years of Bitcoin appreciation. You're not going to be getting rich off of this returned value. My sincere regrets. From Bitcoin Magazine just in, Lightning Network capacity hits new all-time high. Bitcoin is scaling. I'm very bullish on the Lightning Network. I need to spend more time with it. I bought all of the parts for a Bitcoin node. I, in fact, started to do a live stream where I was putting together a Bitcoin node. And I want to do a Lightning node as well. This is a Raspberry Pi. It's the small computer I will use for my node. I did a live stream and then realized that it was terrible video. I couldn't finish it in time. It's running long. I've unlisted that. I'm going to make a more scripted, produced video to show you how I'm doing that. Mark Woolley, Peter Woolley, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Cryptography and Bitcoin stuff at Chain Code Labs, formerly Blockstream. Peter Peiter, probably Peiter, was a core developer on the Bitcoin code. Peter Woolley steps down as Bitcoin core maintainer. This is something that people noticed on GitHub, and he stepped in to clarify. To be clear, I won't stop contributing code, review, and all the projects I'm involved in. It just so happens I'm not doing much maintenance anymore, so it's time to drop my permissions. So people were saying that he stepped down, which creates FUD, right? One of the core developers steps down. Why is he stepping down? He's saying, I'm not stepping down. I'm just not doing so much over in this one area. So I'm going to lose my permissions for that area, which is great security procedure. You should do that. This is a good thing. This is a best security practices, not the project losing a capable coder. From Bitcoin is Savings. I really should find out who this person is. The account appears to be pseudonymous, but I think they are doxed. I think their real identity is out there. Quote, Bitcoin is the world's best savings technology regardless of its exchange rate. Your own full node and keys make it so, right? So if you hold in personal custody and you run a node, then you're unstoppable, my friends. I'm working on that. I hold in custody. I still have to build the node, as I mentioned. My Raspberry Pi. I've got all the hardware. I just need to build it. This is the part that I take objection with. At the very end of this tweet, he says, your own full node and keys make it so, even in 2009 at $0. The insinuation here is that the price doesn't matter. I think the price does ultimately matter. And number go up if adoption goes up. And the network strength and power is directly correlated to the price. The number needs to go up. If it went back to 0, that would be a very, 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 very bad thing. But I don't see any way for that to happen short of, I don't know, cosmic impact, an asteroid wiping out civilization. Let's talk about Voyager. Voyager, who declared bankruptcy the other day. Voyager, who halted withdrawals days before that. Voyager told their customers, their users, that they were FDIC insured, Federal Deposit Insurance Company. This is the United States government's guarantee that if your bank goes belly up, that you will get your deposits back up to $250,000. Any normal bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, your corner community credit union, they all have this licensure and guarantee from the government. Voyager told people that they were FDIC insured. It turns out that this was not necessarily true. So folks who thought that they had a government-backed guarantee on their deposits are now learning that they just might be out $250,000. Yikes. Yikes. This, Stephen Ehrlich, I believe is the CEO of Voyager. Let's see. Voyager CEO, Stephen Ehrlich. All right. Stephen Ehrlich said earlier this year, Voyager will be the bank of the future, and 2022 will be the year that we will blow people away. Well, people are sure blown away, Stephen, just not quite in the way that you might have meant. People are real unhappy with Stephen Ehrlich. VGX token from $7.50 to 2 cents. F Steve Ehrlich and co. and punish him hard. People are really mad. I want my money back, people are saying. It's also come out that Voyager lent money to Three Arrows Capital, and they did it in an unsecured fashion, meaning they had no collateral. They just said, Three Arrows Capital is good for it. We're going to give you a loan for hundreds of millions. They weren't good for it, and now you've just lost that money. I don't know why you would do that. It seems incredibly risky. That's what this post is saying. So risky lending that much money to a single entity. If Three Arrows Capital F it up, you're screwed. And Voyager did this without collateral from 3AC. Yesterday, Dan Held was saying that we might be at the bottom and the contagion may be contained. Like the bankruptcies are in, there are no more dominoes to fall. I don't think we can have any confidence that's true. Vald just shut off withdrawals a few days ago. This is something that's spanning months back to the UST Luna collapse. You think this movement that has been going on for months is gone when we had very clear indication that it was still ongoing a few days ago? I'm not that confident. Maybe the price will go up because people are, I don't know, weary of being bearish. I don't know. The charts seem to indicate that we might be seeing a rally, and we have in fact seen a bit of a rally. Bitcoin is currently at $21,752, up significantly from a few days ago. Celsius is withdrawing their collateral from FTX. They had $550 million in assets in there. They've now paid off their loans, and they can bring their collateral back into self-custody. Self-custody if you're Celsius. This is not to say that it will go back to the depositors. That's the big question. Where does this money go? How much do the depositors get to recoup? There's a giant hole in Celsius's books. Maybe they can figure this out. Maybe Alex Mashinsky can do some financial wizardry to make this work. I'm surprised and impressed that they've come this far and have not declared bankruptcy and just given up. It's genuinely impressive. Reddit released the new NFT collectible avatars, and it seems that the majority of Reddit users don't like them. One of my very first videos talked about this. Reddit was clearly interested in NFTs. They were hiring a head of NFT development. That's about all we knew. But we looked at Reddit in that video and why Reddit is perfectly positioned to deploy something like an NFT collection, badges, etc. Well, it appears that they have released something and people don't love it. They had previously done some work with tokens. The r/cryptocurrency subreddit had a token called a moon associated with it. My account, I have some moons. I've spent some moons. They did have a market value. And you get those for pro-social behavior on the platform. But moons have not been that meaningful. It's not like the moons have mooned. They haven't gone to the moon. It looks like the NFT project is in a similar spot where they're doing stuff, but the community isn't amped about it. It's not making headlines. I'll look more into this. Maybe they're doing something interesting, but people don't seem that interested in what's going on here. Here's a question on r/Bitcoin. Do you prefer Ledger or Trezor for hardware wallets? I made some research and chose Ledger. I know it's not open source, but looks safer, mostly because it's security chip. What do you think about it? Ledger is one of the most popular hardware wallets out there. I have used Ledger in the past. I have really liked my experience with Ledger, but as noted here, their code is not open source. Open source code is more secure because anybody can audit that code to ensure that it is secure. More eyes on the thing mean that it is safer because if there's a mistake, people are going to find it quickly. If you're not open source, then if somebody does get a way in, you're not going to be ready for it. They're asking Ledger or Trezor. There are other options. I am interested in looking at a Blockstream Jade. This is a hardware wallet that is from Blockstream. It deals only in Bitcoin, if I understand correctly. It does have open source software on it. I want to try out a Blockstream Jade. We'll see. I'll let you know if I do that. Broader headlines. Former Japanese PM Shinzo Abe appears to have been shot with a craft-produced, privately made, shall we say, boom boom stick. Again, I'm being careful what words I use. Most likely a smoothbore design chambering boom boom stick cartridges, blah, blah, blah. The former prime minister, the longest-serving prime minister of Japan, his life was prematurely ended in a violent fashion yesterday. And the piece that was used to do that is this one right here. And it has all of the signs of being a homemade piece. And not 3D printed. People were terrified of 3D printed boom boom sticks. This appears to be made with parts from a hardware store. Pipes, electrical tape, a wooden stock. It doesn't take much. And in fact, there's pretty clear indication that it is homemade, and even the projectiles are homemade because there was a lot of smoke after it was fired. Traditional projectiles, choosing my words carefully, don't do that. They don't have a ton of black, gray smoke come out. This is scary because I think we're probably going to be seeing more of this. This is just another indicator of broad global sociopolitical instability. Like I said, Balaji Srinivasan, who wrote The Network State, who has a history of being way ahead of the curve and seeing things way before other people, he was asked on the Tim Ferriss podcast what the next 5 to 10 years looked like. And he said, I don't have an exact time frame, but based on the trends that we're seeing, the future looks something like January 6th insurrection and BLM protests, riots every day, all the time. Yikes. This is from Felix Rex. I don't really know who Felix is, but he makes a good point. People are going to attempt to use this assassination attempt against Shinzo Abe for political posturing in their own countries. That would be despicable. You can clearly see in this photo and the smoke in the video below in the feed, the boom boom stick was obviously homemade from common hardware store parts. There was nothing exotic about this. What has changed is not access to these things, but the temperature and the tone in the broad social dialogue. This on r/Bitcoin. This person also asked on r/investing. Where would you invest $10 million today that could not be touched for the next 200 years? This is an interesting thought experiment, and I have an answer. If I had 10 million liquid ready to spend on something today, I wouldn't put it in a single asset like real estate or Bitcoin. What I would do is try to establish new and better institutions. Society, broadly, relies on institutions to create stability. Any kind of institution, religious, governmental, universities, endowments, we rely on these things for stability in society. Without institutions like that, you will see greater instability. And right now, what we have are a lot of very broken institutions, broken governments, broken university systems, broken religions. I think we need to rethink what kind of institutions we have in society, how they function, how they operate, what they're working toward, how they're funded, who can participate, how they can participate. I'm not saying establish a new university. I'm not saying establish a new religion, though maybe those things are part of it. We need to rethink what institutions we have that create stability in our society and what they are driving toward, what they are building toward, the future that they imagine and help construct. Because right now we have a lot of very broken institutions that frankly aren't doing their job very well, and we are seeing greater instability, not less. This. Why do I have a picture of Lord Farquaad from Shrek? Because I asked my wife the other day something about my hair. A friend asked my wife about my hair in front of me. So I'm there. She said this in front of me. She said, I like his hair when it's like got the right texture, but sometimes it's really just flat and it looks like Lord Farquaad. What do you think? Me and this guy? Are we twins? Do I need to cut my hair? That, more than anything else I've heard, has persuaded me that maybe I need to go short. Maybe you need to chop these long golden locks off. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And that's it, folks. That's what we got today. Things are, I don't know. It's funny. I usually say there's never a boring day in Bitcoin, but some days are certainly more exciting than others. And today, if there's a boring day, today's kind of a boring day, which may actually be an indicator that we are at bottom, right? That things can turn around from here. During bear markets, the extended period of a bear market, people lose interest, and it seems like there's not that much going on. But if you pay attention, there's building still going on. People are still building tools. Adoption is still happening. It's just happening quietly. There aren't huge, flashy headlines. That's what happens in a rapid rise or in a precipitous decline. But when you're just kind of moving along the bottom, things aren't as exciting. That's where you need to keep playing. You need to stick around when things are less exciting. That's what I'm doing with this channel. I'm trying to stick around, stay engaged, be involved, see where the opportunities are. And the minimal opportunity right now is simply buying and holding in self-custody, specifically Bitcoin. There you go, friends. I will be back with more evergreen content and produced videos very soon. I initially was doing just the produced videos, and then I started doing the live videos, and now I need to meld those so that I have a nice mix of both. Coming at you soon. Thanks for sticking around. We'll talk again soon.